All right. All right, so if we take a look at number 15. Number 15 said we have the point 9 halves, comma 1, and the point negative 7 halves, comma 7. Write an equation of the line that passes through the points. Is this the one you're talking about? Awesome. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find slope. So I have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Since your givens were fractions, your answer has to be with fractions, not decimals. Okay. So I'm going to do 7 minus 1 over negative 7 halves minus 9 halves. Do A and the opposite there. So we end up with 6 over a negative 16 halves. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So let's see what that really means, because that to me is super funky. So what this means is 6 divided by a negative 16 halves. That's really what that slope means. So I'm actually going to do this math. So I need to multiply by the reciprocal. So this is 6 times a negative 2/16. I'm going to divide out common factors. This is going to be a 2. That becomes a 3. And that's an 8. So my slope, if I did this right, is negative 6/8, which simplifies to a negative 3/4 if I did that right. So there's my slope. All right. And then my y-intercept. So right now I have y equals mx plus b. So I have y equals negative 3/4 x plus b is currently what I have. All right. I need to, well, neither one of them is going to be very pretty. So I'm just going to use my 9 halves, comma 1. All right, so I have 1 equals 9 halves times a negative 3/4 plus b. All right, so now I have 1 is equal to a negative 27/8 plus b. This 1 I'm going to turn into an 8/8. I'm going to add a 27/8 to both sides. And I end up with 35/8 is equal to b, if I did that right. All right, so I have y equals negative 3/4 x plus 35/8. I don't think I can simplify that, and that's it. So they're not always going to be really pretty. All right, you definitely have to leave the slope as a fraction, but since our original numbers were fractions, they're both being left as a fraction. Now, if this was specific information, like a story problem, the format of those, well, the slope would have to be a decimal, right? Because we want it as or an integer. We want it as a unit rate. All right, and then whatever makes sense for the data. Okay, Rita. For this data, usually we leave it as an improper fraction, but at that point, I don't care. The slope you leave as an improper fraction. But that point, I don't care. What else can I do for you guys? Yes? We got to add them somehow. No. I would not take it as 1 27/8 because you're not going to have an improper fraction in a mixed number. So somehow you've got to make that into a proper, some sort of proper format of a fraction. All right, put this away, get your notes up. All right, we are going to be talking about story problems. So we are doing 4.2, so 4.2 continued. All right, so we're using slope-intercept form. God bless you. God bless you. So let's talk about story problems. Okay, first of all, y as a function of x. That's something that you need to make sure you remember. Y is a function of x. That indicates slope-intercept form. So this phrase indicates, we've talked about this already, but it bears repeating, indicates slope-intercept form. All right, when we have our y-intercept, this is an initial amount. It's a one-time fee. All right, it's your y info when x info information is 0, which is why it would be considered your initial amount. All right, a random data point is something that could be given. All right, so a random data point is going to be, the best way I can do this is just by an example. So let's say that x is my number of months and y is equal to the total cost of a gym membership. They may not tell you the initial sign-up fee. They may tell you 6 months costs $75. This is a data point. And it's important that you recognize that data point. So you always define your variables, and you're like, oh, x is my number of months. So here is my 6 months, and y is my cost. So there would be a data point, 6, 75. So if they don't give you an initial value, all right, they're either going to give you 2 data points and you have to find the slope and the y-intercept, or they're going to give you the slope and a data point. All right, but I need you to recognize what a data point would look like. All right, so now when we look at our givens, all right, we could be given slope and a data point. We could be given slope and an initial fee, or we could be given 2 data points. All right, so you've got to pay attention to the givens that the story has given you, because we need slope and y-intercept. So from whatever data they've given you, you have to figure out how to find the slope and the y-intercept, always. Are you guys cool with that? All right, so I have 2 story problems I want us to make sure that we do today. So I need you figuring out what they have given you. So as you're reading through it, you're like, please, dear God, give us our rate. Please, dear God, give us our rate, because it's less work, right? All right, so you're looking for that unit rate. All right, and then you're like, initial fee, and they probably aren't giving you initial fee based on our section. So you're looking for a data point. Always define your variables first, okay? Are you guys cool with what we're doing? All right, so who needs to see what's up there? All right, so this is going to be example 4 on page 234. I will show it to you. So this is example 4 on page 234. All right, I want you guys to do this problem. You have to set up, obviously, you're setting up an equation and then using it to do this problem. Because we are doing slope-intercept form, you do not need a game plan. Writing down that generic formula for slope-intercept is like your game plan. It's like a formula. Okie dokie. Go ahead. And you can work together if you would like. Remember, always write down that statement, something as a function of something, if they give it to you. So you're writing the equation first, and then you are using it to find the total cost of 9 months. All right, so if you notice, it says total cost is a function of the number of months. I'm going to use that statement to help me identify my x and my y. Remember, it's y is a function of x. So my total cost is my y, my x is my number of months. You have to identify define your variables right away. All right, what information have they given us? What information have they given us? Ashley? Yep, what is that? So that's our slope, right? Excellent. What else have they given us, Ashley? So that's a data point, right? Yeah, so here is a data point. If I was to write that, I would write that as 6, 228. Okay. Ryan, what do I need to do first? So we know our slope, right? Okay, what don't I know that I need? I need that y-intercept, right? Okay, so tell me what I'm going to do. Okay, so that's 228. Times 6 plus b. Okay. Okay. 30. All right, so what's my equation? Excellent. How many of you guys got that equation? Yeah. All right, so now after 9 months, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. Y equals 33 times 9 plus 30. Ryan, what did you get as your final answer for the total cost after 9 months? $327. How many of you guys got that? Awesome. So I would say the cost for 9 months is $327. What do you guys think? Pretty cool? You guys go with that? Okay, let me show you guys another one. Okay, let's do this one. Let's write down the information, and then we'll do this one together. Now, if you notice in this one, they don't have something as a function of something. So we need to identify the X information and the Y information. Your X information is always your independent information. Your Y is always your dependent. So we've got to figure out which of these depends on the other. All right, I'm going to show you what I wrote. So we know that we have a 1-year membership fee. We know we have an entry fee per race. That's what we have to pay. We know that 5 races cost $125. 8 races cost $170. We want to know the cost of the membership fee and the cost per race. All right, well, you always have to define your variables. So what is my X information and what is my Y information? I'm measuring cost and I'm measuring the number of races. So do my number of races depend on my cost, or does my cost depend on my number of races? L? Excellent. So my cost is my Y. So my cost depends on number of races. So that means my cost is my Y, and my number of races is my X. So what information have they given us here? Rita? They have. They've given us 5, 125, and they've given us 8, 170. All right, so we need to find slope. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. I'm going to help us do this really quickly. So let's do 170 minus 125 over 8 minus 5. This simplifies to 45 over 3, or a slope of 15. What does that slope mean? If you notice, we turned it into a unit rate. What does that slope mean, Giselle? Yep, $15 per race. So there's one of our answers. So our slope is always going to be our information for our y over our information for our x. The y information was the cost, the x information was my number of races. And now I've got to find my b value. All right, so if I do that, I'm going to substitute 125 is equal to 15 times 5. I'm going to do that first point, plus b. All right, so I have 15 times 5. So 15 times 5 is going to give me 75. So 125 is equal to 75 plus b. So I end up with b is equal to 50. So $50 membership fee. You guys cool with that? So you really have to pay attention to what data they have given you. Always find your slope, always find your y-intercept. You guys cool?